Crew lives happily ever after, just as friends, and everyone has a jolly good time and runs into the sunset smiling. Wrong. Hi guys, welcome back to Yappa where I yap about my interests such as anime, K-dramas, K-pop, books, and more. And today I'm going to be talking about the Shoujo anime of 2012, Say I Love You, and how I felt watching it. Specifically, the Antagonist. Spoiler, it was kind of strange. Tsukite Inayo, or Say I Love You, is a romance drama, slice-of-life anime that started airing in 2012. Its description states, Tachibana Mei has had no boyfriend and couldn't even make friends. One day, she injures Kurosawa Yamato, the most popular boy in school, and for some reason, Yamato takes interest in her, and one-sidedly claims that they're friends. Furthermore, he not only protects Mei from a stalker, but does so with a kiss. ... Question mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. So my history with the series is complicated. A couple of years ago, I had heard about it and decided to watch it, but I ended up watching what I thought was the last episode. Turns out it was the third one, but since I thought it was the last one, I thought the whole thing was spoiled, and I didn't want to watch it anymore. Plus, if I'm being honest, I wasn't really feeling it that much at the time. I wasn't a big fan of the dub, which was why I was originally listening to it in, but I decided to just watch the first episode anyway to give it a proper chance. And I had gotten just at the point where Mei kicked Yamato on his chest. It was his hand, but I thought it was his chest. But yeah, at that point, it was a wrap for me. That is until I was insanely tired and insanely bored. I was just scrolling through shows when I saw it and decided to give it another go, and it's kind of weird. So I'll start off with some of our initial main characters. Our two main love interests are Mei Tachibana and Yamato Kurosawa. Mei had a complicated relationship with friends and she has never had a boyfriend. We learn in the first episode that Mei has had issues with making friends ever since she was blamed for the death of the class rabbit in elementary school. This seems to be one of her earliest negative relationships with other people. We see that in the current day, not much has changed and she still has no friends, and her peers ridicule her. She's gotten more than used to being alone, so she just ignores people when they try to enter her space. Yamato Kurosawa is the main love interest, and he's introduced to us as this pretty boy ladies man who gets all the girls but isn't too boastful about it. He comes off as a cool and charming but not sleazy or objectifying guy. These two have nothing in common, and if it wasn't for Yamato's sleazy friend, Kenji Nakanishi, they probably would have never interacted. Mei was walking up the stairs, and Yamato and Nakanishi alongside some other girls were walking behind them. That's when Nakanishi pulls on Mei's skirt, as a pervert does. Sidebar, when I was watching it, I immediately realized that he had the same voice actor as Nishinoya from Haikyuu. And hearing him rattle on about how much he likes the size of girls' chests seems like not too far off from Noya's character. Anyway, Yamato was walking beside him when he did this. When Mei felt the tug, she didn't even bother to turn around to see who did it, but instead just kicked the first person she saw. She sent Yamato flying down the stairs with her angry kick, but yet, he still finds her interesting and says that he'd like to get to know her. He even goes out of his way to apologize to her. And she reciprocates it. And he asks for her number. La-di-la-di-da. She doesn't give hers to him, but he gives his to her. Just casual shoujo things. While Mei's at the bakery she works at, there's this one working man who seems to take particular interest in her. The next day at school, Yamato tries to talk to her, but he keeps getting the cold shoulder. She goes on to tell him why she doesn't want nor need any friends. When leaving work, Mei suspects that the guy from the bakery is following her. Then she goes into a convenience store and calls the one other number that she knows apart from her mom. And Yamato stops everything and sprints to her. Sidebar again, when I was watching this, I thought that the show would make it be that this was some kind of misunderstanding or something of the sort. But no, that never happens. This grown man was seriously trying to stalk this high school and it's just never brought up again after this. But yeah, in order to deter this guy, Yamato tells Mei that he loves her, then declares to the man that Mei is his girlfriend, and then kisses her in front of him. There were other ways to deter the guy if you ask me, but I guess it works, and that was the end of the first episode. I feel like this dramatic display maybe should have warned me about what the show was like, but it gets even more dramatic as the series progresses. So that was a recap of the first episode, and from here on out, the show gets really dramatic. One of the things that really stood out to me was the villain of the week it had. I mean, seriously, it felt like there was a new antagonist every 3 episodes. I know the purpose of antagonists is to move along the plot, but like, geez, May cannot catch a break. First, let's start with the ever-present voices that are in the school. There are so many gossipers in that place. It's like they have absolutely nothing to do all of the time, except for talking about other people's business and murmuring to each other. There's always someone loudly whispering about how Yamato's too good for Mei, or how Megami's better for Yamato, or something of the sort. I mean, they never stop talking. And you know what's worse? They're always ridiculously loud about it. They're always speaking at the top of their lungs, almost directly in front of the person they're talking about. The first proper antagonist, she's not though, but she did want Yamato for a bit, so I guess she was a bit of an issue. But yeah, I'm talking about the lovely Asami Oikawa. She's Yamato's big-chested friend who's had a crush on him since middle school when he stood up for her against some bullies. In the second episode, after Mei and Asami had become acquainted, and more importantly, after Mei and Yamato had their first kiss, Mei talks to her about their kiss, and that's when Asami breaks it to her that she's also kissed Yamato. Matter of fact, Yamato has kissed almost every girl in the school, and that he doesn't kiss any girl he actually likes. This revelation leads to Mei spiraling a bit about how Yamato kissed her like it was nothing. To ice the cake, Asami tells her about the one girl Yamato hasn't kissed, who also happens to be the girl Yamato had a crush on in middle school, or was it elementary? I don't remember. Asami puts some doubts into Mei's head, but as I said, Asami isn't really an antagonist. We see how she gets bullied by these 2 girls about the size of her chest, which might I add is ridiculous, if that didn't go without saying. Also, those 2 girls are also antagonists, but they show up literally twice, and their only purpose is to get Mei to stand up for herself and to get Asami with Nakanishi. And then they're gone. Poof. But Asami ends up getting into a relationship with Nakanishi, so now she's no longer interested in Yamato. Villain thwarted. Another barely there villain is Miki Arai, the girl Yamato had never kissed. If I'm being honest, this girl deeply confused me. She and Aiko, someone I'll talk about soon, have very similar names, so I thought they were the same person, and I was deeply confused for a bit because of that mistake. I had to Google it to clear up the confusion. But yeah, upon hearing that Yamato has kissed every girl in the school but her, she decides to put some moves on him, but she gets shot down, and that's it. That is quite literally all she does in the series, and then she doesn't return. The next antagonist, and this time she's actually an antagonist, not for long of course, is Aiko Muto. As I stated, I thought she and Arai were the same person. It literally makes no sense considering that they have a height difference of like a foot, and Aiko has an edgier style in contrast to Arai's soft and sweet style. But my logic was that Arai probably just tried to switch up her style after Yamato rejected her, and that's why she looked so different. But it turns out I was really wrong, and they ended up being 2 completely different people. But yeah, Yamato and Mei are all on a date, when they bump into Aiko and her boyfriend. They decide to hang out with each other. That's when Aiko notices that Yamato is putting in all the work and Mei doesn't seem as interested as he does. She then leaves a hard-hitting truth with Mei, and that is that she and Yamato had slept together. That's when I had to hit pause, because what do you mean you slept with each other? Like, just... We then see Aiko's backstory about how she did some unhealthy and dangerous things to please her boyfriend, but he ended up cheating on her. She then wept in Yamato's arms as he tried to comfort her. That's when she said the only way that he can prove to her that she isn't hideous and disgusting is if he sleeps with her. Now I have mixed feelings about that, but that's a discussion for another day. Anyway, Aiko promises that she won't lose to a, and I quote, pussyfooter like Mei, and vows to win Yamato. However, if I'm being completely honest, she doesn't actually do anything either. She spends her 2 episodes as a villain, hanging out with Kakeru Hayakawa and just mentioning how Mei and Yamato are dating to him. She doesn't try to split up Mei and Yamato using any schemes, and after Mei stands up for her to Hayakawa, Aiko admits defeat and decides that her desires to end up with Yamato are pointless since he's in love with someone else. After that, Aiko isn't a threat to their relationship anymore. In fact, she becomes quite close with Mei, helping her out when she has issues with Yamato and consoling her when she was sad about the way things were going. You can even say she ends up picking her friendship with Mei over anything that she could ever have with Yamato. Since I'm going through each villain in chronological order, the next person up is Kakeru Hayakawa, and his whole deal is just so odd to me. He's friends with Yamato, and I mean, out of the blue, he decides that he wants to get to know Mei because, Yamato, I've got to know who the girl is that stole your heart. Let me meet her. This boy has no business doing any of this, and Yamato isn't the least bit skeptical of why he'd want to do that. Anyway, the three meet up for lunch, and Hayakawa shares numbers with Mei. Not even 5 seconds after Yamato excuses himself to go answer a call, Hayakawa starts trying to plant seeds of doubt in Mei's mind. He talks about how Yamato's probably talking to another girl, and how it would benefit Mei to try dating other guys, because it would make her cuter. Of course, Mei says no, then she leaves Hayakawa sitting there looking like an idiot. When Yamato returns and sees that Mei is gone, he asks what happened, and the idiot tells him. He's not concerned in the slightest about the fact that he tried to hit on his friend's girlfriend, but Yamato shuts him up with a punch for his disrespect. That's it. That's all that we see of him after that. Just kidding, no, he comes back a little later with a girlfriend and redemption, I guess. Anyway, the next villain is Yamato's own sister, Nagi Kurosawa. And obviously she's not an actual villain. Matter of fact, I'm gonna wrap this up in 2 sentences real quick. So her deal is that she holds Yamato near and dear since she was going through some stuff, and she hates Mei by default since she's trying to date her brother. But eventually the two patch things up and now they're best friends. The end. Done. The next villain, and I think the only real antagonist, is Megumi Kidegawa, or Megutan. Megumi's a model slash indie celebrity, and she's gonna be transferring to Taomei High School, the same school that our main cast is going to. Meanwhile, the agency that Megumi works for is also looking for a male model. On Megumi's first day, she spots Yamato, says he has the face of a prince, and that she wants to be with him. It doesn't matter to her whether he has a girlfriend or not. All she cares about is getting what she wants, and that is Yamato. Yamato, of course, shuts her down, quite brutally. Meanwhile, Mei just happens to walk past and overhear the conversation. I'm just gonna sidebar once again. Who does that? Who just walks up to someone they don't know and says, "Oh, I want you. I don't care if you have a girl." Like, that's not my... What? Like, this girl is crazy. Anyway. The next time Megumi goes to school, she apologizes for her very forward behavior, and Yamato apologizes for calling her vain and full of herself. The two decide to turn over a new leaf and start over as friends. And so they do that. And the whole crew lives happily ever after, just as friends, and everyone has a jolly good time and runs into the sunset smiling. Wrong, of course. So for a couple of episodes, everything is smooth sailing. I actually almost felt for it. As I was saying, Megumi plays the role of a good friend really well. That's when she decides to ask Yamato if he'd be willing to fill in the role of a male model at her agency for a photo shoot. Yamato agrees with assurance from Mei, and the two do the shoot together. Mei sees how much chemistry the two have, and she starts to feel insecure. After this, Megumi and Yamato start working more frequently with each other, sometimes leaving school early if they have a shoot together. This just puts a strain on Mei and Yamato's relationship. Megumi and Yamato start spending more time, and on top of that, Megumi starts spending more time with the rest of Mei's friends, leaving Mei to feel increasingly more and more alone. I think the breaking point is when Yamato went to Megumi's house alone at night and didn't say anything to Mei. That night we learned about her story, Megumi's story. Growing up, she was really tall. I can relate as a tall girl myself, 5'9". People made her feel ugly and unwanted, but she was able to change herself and become what was seen as pretty to others when she entered middle school. She became a model and made it her mission to appeal to everyone. She makes her fans feel like she is always interested in them and always likable. Because of this, no one really gets to know her, and she starts to feel alone. And because Yamato is giving her time and attention that isn't just because of her popularity, she becomes even more set on getting him. She uses Kai, one of Yamato's friends who also has a crush on Mei, to get Yamato jealous and doubtful of Mei. Once she realizes that her plan won't work and that Mei's friends had drawn the line with her and didn't want to be a part of the groupie nonsense, she distances herself from them. She has a group of other friends, but she comes to find out that they were only using her for her money and her popularity. She then spirals and locks herself in her house, not speaking to anyone and only eating junk food. She wonders about where she went wrong and cuts off all communication with everyone. Even though Yamato comes to help her friend help her, Yamato isn't the one who gets through to her. It's her friend, Kaori Tanaka. Kaori's been with her through thick and thin, and even though she was mean to her, Kaori still offers her grace. She's able to get through to her and help her realize that she doesn't need to be perfect all the time, and that there are other people who love her, whether she's beautiful or not. She has her redemption outside of Yamato, and I really appreciate that. After this, Megami gives Yamato and Mei their space, and spends time with Kaori. She also gets a new haircut as a way to allow herself to feel beautiful in a way that people aren't expecting from her. I think she was my favorite antagonist, and I really love what they did with her character, like giving her space to grow outside of the main two. The last antagonist I want to talk about, who also happens to be my favorite character in the entire show, is Kai Takemura. Kai is introduced as this big character who really enjoys sweets. We come to find out that he was Yamato's friend back in middle school, the same friend that Yamato didn't stand up for when he was getting bullied. Kai's mission is to get revenge on his bully for the way he treated him, and he spent a year away learning how to fight and getting bigger. After a couple of chance encounters with Mei, Kai realizes that he also has a crush on her, and tells Yamato this. These characters are braver than I could ever be, but I digress. It's after talking to Mei and seeing how his bully turned out firsthand that he realizes that taking revenge wouldn't satisfy him as much as he thought it would. He's honestly just genuinely sweet and minds his business, and is really in love with land. He never does anything to harm Mei and Yamato's relationship. In fact, he even helps them when Yamato gets jealous of him, and he helps Mei voice the feelings she was having. He's a sweet guy who has dealt with a rough hand, but chose to be a better person and not perpetuate the cycle of harm. And he is the most sane and normal one in the show, so I guess that's why he's my favorite character. And that was all of the antagonists of Say I Love You. There's probably like 6 or more. There was conflict in every episode, but it definitely made things more interesting and kept me very engaged the whole time. I hope you enjoy me yapping about the antagonists of Say I Love You, and if you did, please like the video and hit the subscribe button. Who's your favorite antagonist? Who's your favorite character? And if there's anything you want me to yap about in particular, please comment below. I hope you have a good day. Bye!
And if I hear one more character go, me, so cute, I'm actually gonna lose it.